Township Environmental Advisory Council meeting for March. Would like to take a roll call because we have one person online who is a member of the council. I'm Dan Burnham.
Bess Yates.
Erin McGinnis.
And and Sven Dethlefs. Yes. Okay. Great. Approval of the minutes. Do I get approval of the minutes? Raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Public comment.
Thank you, Chairman Burnham and members of the Environmental Advisory Council. I'm here tonight to ask you to consider adopting a resolution on the climate emergency, which was approved by the League of Women Voters both at the state and national levels. Basically, it reads as this. Whereas environmental conditions adversely affecting Earth and its inhabitants, once referred to as climate change, has advanced to become a climate emergency, including ocean acidification, damage to marine ecosystems and food sources, and a rise in sea levels resulting in flooding and the displacement of coastal businesses and residences. Extreme weather events, including extremes of temperature as well as increasing devastating storms and wildfires, causing severe harm to America's agriculture, forestry, and tourism industries. Adverse impacts on human health, as well as the introduction of new vectors for infectious disease, and species extinction and related threats to biodiversity, which accompany grave impacts on food and water security, economic security, and social well-being. And whereas the world's leading climate scientists predict that the climate crisis will catastrophically intensify if prompt public action is not taken through public policy and legislation to curb emissions and remove atmospheric CO2 through natural and technological sequestration. And whereas the climate crisis disproportionately affects the most vulnerable among us, members of indigenous nations, people of color, rural and coastal communities, and low-income households in general, all of whom have fewer resources to cope with the common consequences of climate change, such as property damage, displacement, job loss, and health problems. And whereas the prompt and robust mobilization of civil society, acting in concert with all levels of government to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions is necessary to avert or even mitigate the progressive and increasingly catastrophic deterioration of the Earth's environment and with it massive societal disruption. Therefore, we would like it to be resolved that the Radnor Environmental Advisory Council declares a climate emergency and will take action as appropriate to address this crisis within our community. We further resolve to encourage the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners to do the same. Thank you. Are any questions?
My understanding is you would like this council not only to agree with your resolution, but actually take it as, or if not then one of the documents directing our efforts.
Well, I believe what it would do is encourage you to act appropriately to resolve the crisis as you see fit.
Okay.
I'm not directing you what to do. I think you are the best judges of what you can do and what you can't do. But
right.
The crisis is here, and I think it behooves all of us to do the best that we can to address it.
Right.
So that's what as appropriate gives you a lot of wiggle room. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Okay. Any comments? Colleagues here? Okay.
And also, I would like you to encourage the Board of Commissioners to adopt a similar position because it's something that affects all of us, not just this committee.
Okay. Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you.
Announcements. Well, we're here to celebrate our two new members, one who's here visually but not in physical form, Sven Dethelifs. Sven, tell us very briefly what is your background and what you want to bring to our council.
Good. So from my accent, you can tell I'm German. I moved to Radnor, the USA, in 2016. I'm 8 years here now. I'm a biochemist by training. I have a PhD in immunology and in infectious disease. I was in a consultancy, McKinsey & Company, a senior partner. And then I worked 16 years in pharmaceuticals. Now I work in biotech. I live in Radnor, and what brought me to biodiversity, I think it was a lifelong interest, biodiversity, or the protection of biodiversity. And since I think a change starts locally and in your backyard, in your township, that's the reason why I would like to engage with the Radnor community on the EAC, and of course, wherever we can make a positive change.
Thank you. Erin McInnes is our second appointee. Erin, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Erin McGinnis. My background is I've worked in marketing for a little over 12 years now, mostly in the biotech space, but I left late last year just to do freelance now. So I moved to Radnor in 2018, and I really enjoy all of the parks and just open spaces here. And I think that's why what really interested me in the EAC and just be a part of that and continue to conserve Radnor Township for everyone. I also enjoy the plant giveaways and the tree programs, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to use some of my marketing background and kind of get the word out locally a bit more as well. So thank you.
Thank you. So tonight's speaker at 7 p.m., Jen Santoro, will be a lot of interest to you. She'll be speaking about the benefits of tree canopies. Announcements. The Shade Tree Commission offers street tree planting in front of your home between the sidewalk and the road. If you are interested, they have a variety of trees of about 1.5 inch diameter up to 14 feet that could be planted in front of your home between April 11th and April 18th. You would need to show your interest by going to the Radnor Township website for the Shade Tree Commission. Register at radnortrees.com specifically. The Willistown Conservation Trust is sponsoring a volunteer tree planting opportunity April 3rd through April 6th in the mornings and afternoons. So they need help planting trees near Darby Paoli Road and Brook Road at Ravenscliff. This is just northwest of the Willows. It's near that pond that has turtles in it. That's right by Brook Road and Darby Paoli Road. So if you're interested, please contact Willistown Conservation Trust. You can search for that just with that name. They don't offer a very good registration email, but I'll put it in the minutes in any case, or URL, excuse me. The Great American Backyard Campout. This is an annual Radnor event at the Willows. This year it'll be held on May 31st, Saturday, between 4 and 7:30 p.m. In terms of formal activities. And one of those between 5 and 7 p.m. is creek exploration with the Radnor EAC. This is something we did last year where a intrepid individual of our council put on waders and looked under rocks in the streams for macroinvertebrates, which are a good sign of the health of a stream. If you have a sick waterway, there will be fewer or no macroinvertebrates this time of year when they're in their larvae or pupal stage. So anyone interested in joining me on May 31st, please let me know. Thank you. Okay, ongoing business. Municipal energy conservation and electrification. This is a project that the Green Team initiated with the township about 3 years ago, resulting in a energy conservation and renewable energy plan for the township. And the Green Team is very grateful to the township for having brought to reality many of the recommendations put in the plan for municipal buildings. For example, Practical Energy Solutions has recently provided a comparison of various heat pump and boiler heat generating equipment in terms of their return on investment and their energy savings, which not always are follow each other. And it's for the township to decide to balance efficiency and with return on investment. And so this will be information that hopefully we will see when Practical Energy Solutions gives their presentation on their work in May, which we'll very quickly discuss in the next item. I'm very pleased to see that there's electrical vehicle charging stations being installed in the township building, and it's expected to be completed in about 6 weeks. So the 2 F-150 Lightning multi-service police vehicles can now be charged rapidly on site to better serve the community. We've completed replacement of street lights with LED lights throughout the township. It's over 1,000 light fixtures, and just some remaining work needs to be done for several HOAs. Building energy use benchmarking is basically whereby buildings, commercial buildings above a certain size, are obligated by ordinance to compare their energy use, whether it's for heating or electricity, to a standard that can be obtained online for a similar sized building and of certain age. And the township is working with the DVRPC to implement a benchmarking ordinance in the township, and work is progressing on that nicely. Okay, the annual EAC Native Plant Giveaway for April 26th. There's several council members involved in this, so who would like to update the team on that?
I can update you.
Okay.
So we ordered the plants. I think we ordered 2,500 plants, if I'm not mistaken. Dan volunteered to pick them up with me at the nursery in the week of the plant giving. We have the ad or the article about biodiversity in the next Radnor Township publication that comes out, I think, in April, where we talk about the importance of biodiversity, and then there's also this internal ad for the plant giveaway. So it's nicely advertised. And the only two things that are still open is I need to order the paper bags to for the giveaway. I have written the let's say this little leaflet to come with a paper bag. That's just needs to be designed and needs to be let's say upgraded in its let's say look and feel. But then we have that as well, so I think we should be in shape for the plant giveaway.
That's wonderful.
We have to decide then when Melissa is going to, because the registrations, I think, are coming into Melissa. I mean,
Okay,
that's the way it was handled before.
that's right.
So I guess we have to decide when do we want to make the announcement so people start registering. Because how many homes do you think we have enough plants for, Sven?
It should be at least for 150. I have to go back into my table where I calculated it. I can update you or send you an email afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, so potentially 450 giveaways.
No, it's, if we say it's, I think we ordered, what is it, 2,500 plants, if I'm not mistaken, around 2,000, 2,500. And if everybody gets 10 plants, and we have some walk-ins, then we should have at least, let's say, 200 households. Let's say, I think we could supply with plants.
So we're closer to 250.
Yeah. Let me just look up my email that I sent to Melissa, but the website is already, I think the link we tested the link is already active, but the ad will of course only be in the Radnor magazine in April, but you are absolutely right, it should most likely also be on the Radnor Township homepage, like this tree planting that people can register for, that's already online.
Okay, so I hear an action. One of you will confirm with Melissa that any attempts at registering are going through and getting succeeding. Okay.
I can do that.
Okay.
And then, Bess, I think you have you're working on the materials.
Yes, so I'll coordinate with you too about the plants that you've ordered and the numbers, so we can get a wonderful little flyer going.
And last year, I think didn't we have like a poster, and we had the different types of plants that we were providing, and then people could take a picture with their phone if they wanted information on the plants. So I guess we can think if we want to do it that way, so that when they get home, they have a little bit more information.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in the leaflet, we have the planting guide, the name of the plants, some more information, and then I thought, exactly as you said, we can lay out the plants on the table. They can take a picture of it so that they see what's the difference between this little plug that they get and the plant when it's blooming, so that they can recognize the plants. And now I found the email to Melissa. We have enough plants for 250 households, and I recommended we close the list at 235, so that if somebody walks up, we have at least another 15 that we could give away if somebody shows up without a registration.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and Dan are picking up the plants, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you need help getting this all organized on that Friday before the,
Yeah, it should be Friday because it's a Saturday event. So we can all gather at my place, just next to the Wayne train station. So there would be a variety of plugs, grass and perennial plugs per bag.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anything more? Okay. Public education.
Anything else, Bess, that we need to talk about?
Not right now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Public education, just once again, the Radnor EAC lecture series continues tonight at 7 p.m. with Jennifer Santoro, Villanova Professor of Environmental Sciences, talking about the benefits of a neighborhood tree canopy. There will be additional presentations as shown in the agenda up to the end of May. Bess, any progress in getting additional presentations?
No, well, I'm hopeful that a June date with the Philadelphia Orchard Project might work. I'm following up with them. So
Okay.
have lectures in June been a good time for folks, or a lot of people, I think, a lot of Radnor feels like it's kind
Our
of
lecture
empty.
series has just really gotten started. I don't even think we had one last year. This is all kind of new. This
Okay.
is what, about our fourth one or so? So,
Okay.
So,
Right.
yeah, we really
June-
didn't have them before, did we, Dan?
Well, we had some in May
Yeah, but I mean,
last year.
I mean,
Yeah.
but prior to that.
No. This was, the lecture series was put together by Eugenia Warnock, and she originated it about a year and a half ago. And I think the first presentation was in the spring of 2024. So we did have a series of them last fall, and we're continuing it this winter and spring, and then next fall as well.
But I could see the benefit of holding off until September when we might have more people
Right.
in
No.
the area.
Did I say summer? I'm sorry if I
Oh,
said.
no, I'm just thinking about the Philadelphia Orchard Project in September.
Sure.
Versus June.
No, fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can still, planting can still happen in the fall if someone is interested in planting an
Oh, yeah.
orchard tree or edible plants.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
We also are collaborating with Haverford EAC in their workshop series. There are presentations as seen in the agenda in April and May that nicely kind of dovetail with the subjects in our lecture series. And thanks to Melissa and Molly and Ian, all of these series, both the lecture series and the workshops, are advertised through the Radnor Township website under the EAC subheading. We also have print media, the Radnor News Community Newsletter, and Suburban Life. Thanks to Eugenia, particularly for establishing a relationship with Suburban Life. We are going to have advertisements for the native plant giveaway and how to recycle in Radnor Township articles. That will be going to press in late March. Already in Suburban Life, we should be seeing Diana Pope presentation or summary of English ivy, danger to trees. She's a member of the League of Women Voters who wrote a wonderful treatment of the danger that English ivy as an invasive species can endanger something as big as a tree itself. So, very important article she wrote. Radnor News Community Newsletter, pending, as Sven indicated, there is an article coming up this spring with an article that he wrote, said, go wild in your backyard, basically how to let your backyard become more natural and less less horticultural, I guess. He and Bess have created a graphic ad also for the plant giveaway, and the EAC lecture series is also advertised in the Radnor Community Newsletter, Spring Edition. In addition, I have posted our lecture series and our workshops in the League of Women Voters Delco Environmental Clearinghouse. Again, it can be searched with those terms. Delco Environmental Clearinghouse will pull up the page. And I encourage everyone to review this very current and comprehensive list of activities and articles of environmental nature. It's the most complete source for current information. It's a wonderful site. Thank you, Roberta, and your colleagues. Let's see. Earth-friendly tips. Bess created with me an article on smart salting. It was posted just at the end of the cold weather, unfortunately, but how to properly salt your sidewalk in an environmentally conscious way. So that's on Earth-Friendly Tips right now. That's in our EAC website. Donnell is working on a eco-friendly yard program article that will be hopefully published either electronically or in print this spring. For those who don't know what eco-friendly yard program is, this was initiated by our former chairperson, who thought that people who do not use pesticides or herbicides and plant native plants, perennials, and trees and bushes should be rewarded for their efforts by having a flag planted in their yard, informing people of their awareness of the issues that go with following conventional yard design. Gas leaf blower phase out. As I said last meeting, I met with the Department of Public Works to consider the chances of the department phasing out gas leaf blowers, not only because of their noise, but because of the extreme air pollution caused by two-cycle engines. And they are understandably balking at backpack leaf blowers because of the short runtime battery life. They're operating at best 45 minutes, whereas a full tank backpack gas blower can work for over an hour. So they are going to purchase, with the commissioner's blessing, handheld leaf blowers to see how they meet the demands of the large-scale landscaping that they have to do in our township. So that leaves our council with a task of how do we promote the idea of a township ordinance or a regional ordinance banning gas leaf blowers. And there has been a suggestion that we take some small steps, such as limiting the use of gas leaf blowers to certain times of the day based on the noise ordinance that is already exists in the township. The other is to wait for the technology to evolve so that perhaps battery capacity will increase and meet the demands of commercial landscapers as well as homeowners. The other is just to see what level of interest already is out there in the community in phasing out gas leaf blowers. So we could hold stakeholder meetings, perhaps followed by a community survey based on the concerns and raised at the stakeholder meetings. There's already been a survey prepared by Springfield EAC that I've distributed previously for us to review. So this is something that I would like our council to focus more on as we get our spring activity underway and taken care of. How do we advance in this area? Okay, new business. Carol, the Native Perennial Seed Library at Radnor Memorial Library.
Okay, I met with the executive director and one of her staff members. This is something that they've been interested in doing for quite a while. So they were delighted that we brought it to their attention. And they have moved forward with a proposal, and they're proposing that they'll organize in one of their old library card catalogs, probably to be located near the cafe. And they'll produce branded signage and artwork for the collection and management of signs, labels, takeaways, displays. They'll provide the supplies that will be needed, of course the seeds, but along with the pre-printed envelopes. The library plans to purchase the seeds. They'll also solicit for donations. And then the seeds will be placed in pre-printed envelopes, branded, specific for the project. They'll organize them alphabetically in the drawers of the card catalog, and they'll have seeds for vegetables, annual flowers, perennial flowers, herbs, native plants, and expand as necessary. So people can come in, they can search through the drawers, they can take a small amount of seeds as they would like, with limits, of course, and the envelopes will be provided. And the idea is take a seed, leave a seed, and there will be a brief on how to collect seeds, and a flyer to encourage people to collect seeds, but some people don't know how to go about it, so there'll be instructions, and then also how to leave seeds. The staff will review the packets and edit and add necessary information. And materials will be developed to show people how to use the seed library. And then there'll be additional information about collecting, plant varietals, sowing, landscape, local resources. And they have, I guess Chanticleer has, there's a Chanticleer section that will tie into this as well. So they're very excited to get going. They would like to partner with us, and I would like to ask the EAC for a grant of $500. And the grant for $500 will allow them to approximately $300 for the initial seed inventory, another $150 for some of the supplies, labels, seed packets, and then $50 for the promotional printing. They'd like to have something to, maybe they'll even develop some sort of like a bookmark or something that they can hand out at the native plant giveaway, so they could be there to talk about, maybe that would be like their sort of kickoff event.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like people through RML are really able to take this ball and run with it.
Yes,
And
yes.
all they're asking of us is funding.
Funding, and they probably help to publicize it, put information on the website, anything we can do to help expand it. And then probably in the fall, because they would like to, present at one of our lecture series. But by that point, they'll have it, up and running and be able to really showcase what they're doing. But this would be, the seed library of the Radnor Memorial Library in partnership with the EAC.
Okay. So when would they like a commitment from us on the $500? Is it,
Well, they're ready to get going.
they're ready to get going?
So I don't know
Okay.
how our budget is, if we have,
Well, our budget could well handle it. We have a $3,200 budget, and we're using $500 to pay speakers so far in the EAC lecture series. So that leaves about $2,700 in our budget,
and
a quarter of the way through the year. So I think it's worthy enough cause, but I would like, let's see, we have a quorum here of members, so we can vote on this. You following, Sven? Are you, okay, because, okay, great. So let's have a motion for, I guess from you, for,
wait a minute, Bess, did you have something? You look like you wanted to say something.
No, I mean, is it a budget that could be passed around to review, or do we need to support, like, I mean, I'm all for supporting the project. I'm just wondering if this is something that we need.
the budget is not, at the beginning of every year so far, has not been earmarked for or subdivided into certain.
I just meant just
Purposes.
the $500 for the library, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not declining, I am for this project and very much for supporting it in some capacity, but whether, like, just, is it possible to see what the $500 would be used for?
Well,
You mentioned it
yes,
already.
the $500
Okay, that's fine.
would go for the $300 for the
Okay.
initial seed inventory.
Okay,
150 for supplies, labels, the seed packets, et cetera, and then some promotional materials that they'll have at the plant giveaway and other related materials. Having never done this, this is just what they're proposing.
okay.
How long it will, will it go into 2 years? When, we don't know until we get it up
Okay.
and running.
Okay,
What I'd also like to suggest is if we do it and they move forward, that we maybe have have the EAC go over to the library one evening and, meet with them and see the library and, get really a hands-on.
Mhm.
So it'll give us an opportunity to really become an advocate for the project.
I have one other question, whether the Radnor Conservancy and Birdtown have also been approached, because I think the Great Backyard Bird Count talk where we partnered with them and were able to go in on that together, if that's something that has been talked about at all, or,
Well, I mean, I think this was just the initial stage. And
Sure.
they talked about the library, the garden club, which is also, I guess, meets at the library, maybe bringing them in. But I think we're going to start just with us, and then maybe as it develops, maybe there'll be other opportunities, because obviously
Okay.
the more stakeholders, the
Yeah.
greater the reach. And
okay, great.
Yeah, it's a good point. I would suggest, Carol, you just inform Radnor Conservancy, Amber, of these plans. And perhaps, well, we'll just inform them at this stage. Thank-
So, do you want me to make a proposal?
Yes, please.
So I would like to, I guess, a motion to
Mhm.
provide the Radnor Memorial Library with a grant of $500 to allow them to move forward in establishing a seed library.
Okay, with $300 initially for the seeds, well, $300 for initial supply of seeds to be purchased, and then $150 to help set up the display and supportive literature, I guess.
And $50
Pro- For promotional materials, both electronic and print, I guess.
something they want to hand out as a native plant giveaway. Like they may have developed like a bookmark or so. There's, like I said, this is all in the planning stage. That's
Right,
what they'd like to do.
right. Yeah, it certainly dovetails with our giveaway efforts, so it'd be good to have them up and running at that time.
And then, like I said, they'll provide, maybe be part of the lecture series in September, October.
Yeah. Okay. All right, anyone want to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hands.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
So, Dan, how do we go about getting the money?
That'll be my thing. I'll take that up with Melissa. Okay, Garden Nature Club, the local elementary schools. Bess?
Yes, so we have a bit of an update about the Garden and Nature Club that we were proposing at the last meeting at Ithan Elementary. And so that Nature Club has been postponed to next spring of 2026. But Mira Shapiro, who is looking to get that going, is going to be setting up a garden in the meantime. And we'll hopefully get kids outside to experience that garden there. So at Wayne Elementary and then at Radnor Elementary, we are working on getting kind of a garden and nature club or some sort of garden going at both places within the next year. So it is a little bit of a long-term effort. But in the meantime, we are submitting a Radnor Educational Foundation grant. First, a letter of intent that's going to be due at the end of the month of March. And this is for funding for environmental education-related books for all 5 schools in the Radnor School District. And so this will help support the new STEELS standards, which is a new science set of standards that will be implemented this coming fall. So, which is a bit more hands-on and stewardship-oriented, sustainability-oriented, and environmentally oriented. And so there's a good bit of curriculum that will need more support in the way of updated books. So that's in the works. And then this is somewhat related, but we are going to have a table at the Wayne Elementary Earth Day celebration on Thursday, April 17th, and I'm going to be representing the EAC and then also as a parent volunteer. So that's Thursday, April 17th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And we will also have Birdtown Radnor and then the Radnor Conservancy. So we'll have all 3 of us there together. Laura Luker has agreed to to operate the Birdtown and Radnor Conservancy table. So we'll have activities there, like whether it's seed starting or little seed balls, bombs, and then maybe what's in potting soil. So if there's any other ideas, I'd be welcome. I would love to hear them for activities at our table. And then information about the Radnor, our tree plant, our native plant giveaway, we can have there also. So we can hand that out to families. So that's a little bit about what's going on there. I am going to be visiting on Friday the new Eagle Elementary Giving Garden, which is a partner with the Chester County Food Bank, a community garden partner. And so we'll be learning a little bit about what they're doing there to get kids more involved in their school gardens. So seeing that as another kind of model for educating kids on how to grow plants and grow vegetables. So that's it on my end.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of energy in this EAC around plants, which really is important. As spring is upon us, we want to make use of the benefits of the weather to be fruitful and to multiply. You can come in. I think we have some potential attendees for our lecture, but anyway. Remaining items shouldn't take too long. The Aronimink Golf Club, clear-cutting 9 acres for a temporary PGA broadcast center in 2026. Our township engineer, Steve Norsini, met with the Newtown Township engineer to review the plans for stormwater and sediment management controls. Basically, we're going to be facing 9 acres of bare ground until the newly planted grass and some trees take hold. And this 9 acres is on sloping ground, so the golf club is going to be installing 3 rainwater catchment basins and other stormwater controls. The concern, of course, is that Darby Creek, or Little Darby Creek, has its headwaters right at the bottom of the hill, or along the hill on which this cleared ground will lie. So there's concern of flooding and sediment buildup in the Darby Creek, which flows into Skunk Hollow in our township. Stephen was well aware of this, and he's learned that there is a operations and management agreement whereby the golf club would oversee the maintenance and repair and continued operation of the basins in perpetuity. This would be, I think, go a long way to reassuring me, at least at this stage, of protecting the creek bed. That being said, I will be wanting to photograph Darby Creek in Skunk Hollow this spring, and be working with the Darby Creek Valley Association and Willistown Conservation Trust in monitoring the Darby Creek health over the next year or two, just to ensure that it stays healthy, or at least in its current state. Recycling and waste management in Radnor Township, there's no activity in that area, but I like to keep it open. because it is still an ongoing area that we need to remain active in. The use and generation of electricity from solar and wind energy. I've been proposing that this EAC promote the use of renewable energy certificates by residents. And I myself and also encourage my colleagues here to review RECs, because there is some pros and cons to which REC you choose as to whether it really is benefiting someone generating renewable energy or not. So that is an ongoing action item for myself as well as my colleagues here to look up renewable energy certificates. Maintenance of rain gardens.
Dan, I don't quite, when you say certificates, can you explain?
Yeah. Basically, when you, Pennsylvania is blessed with the ability of users of electricity, whether commercial or residential, to choose the supplier of their electricity. So it can be conventional sources that PECO would provide, which is primarily fossil fuel generated, although because electricity is electricity, in there is some electricity generated by nuclear power. So I think about 60% of our electricity from PECO, if you just go with the lowest rate, is from fossil fuels, and the rest is from renewable energy or hydropower, and also renewable electricity. If you want to go 100% renewable, you can go to papowerswitch.com, I think it's .com, whereby you can select renewable energy and whether you want a flex rate or fixed rate supplier charge, and you get various plans whereby you can then, if you choose a fully renewable source of energy, you're basically operating through renewable energy certificates. If you are purchasing electricity from sources outside of the state of Pennsylvania, which largely are in Texas or the central states, where a lot of wind and solar farms are set up. The alternative is to go with supporting specific energy farms, wind primarily, in Pennsylvania, which costs a little more, but you are directly supporting that particular farm instead of any farm that may participate in that particular plan. So usually it costs more per kilowatt hour to go with Pennsylvania sourced renewable energy than just plain PECO sourced energy. So again, I would like us to do that homework, look it up, and maybe come up with a promotional piece for RECs with some cautionary statements. Maintenance of rain gardens in the township. Radnor Parks and Rec is going to be contracting with a firm to restore the 4 rain gardens in the township. And some of them have been built up with sediment and overgrowth of invasive species. So after they're restored, I need to work with you all and perhaps Radnor Conservancy and other groups to develop a long-term maintenance plan for these rain gardens. What often happens with citizen-inspired environmental projects, there's a lot of energy in the beginning, and then people move on or get distracted with other things, and that project then is neglected. So we have to somehow find out how to get ongoing volunteer involvement in maintaining these rain gardens, keeping them clear so that they do their job. Radnor Township EAC logo, Donnell has offered to create our actual logo. We just have a sign that actually I want to share with you, Bess, for your school activity. It's just a very dry sign, but Donnell has ideas for a more splashy logo, which can be made into patches for our shirts and things. No. Okay, lastly, the Radnor Township EAC 2024 Annual Report. I emailed to my colleagues on March 6th, and comments are due from you by tomorrow, March 20th. And so I can get it out at this late date for posting in the township website. Any public comment? Okay. I adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Ian. And now we will, we can move from our high seats here to
up on the hill where there's really like they have this little baseball field, so they but like off to the side near that like, big rock. I thought that'd be cool to have like a garden. Yeah, because I built a garden in my backyard. It's just a raised bed. They're not hard. And I always thought that'd be a good spot for a garden like that. Yeah. Down there. Yeah, so it all comes into where the STEM room is and the stairs to the gym and the cafeteria. Yeah, that can be good. That gets a lot of sun down there too. And it'd be, and it's not really useful, like field space. Yeah, it would be a good spot down there. Plus, that would be central to where the science room is. That new wing is where the science, I'm guessing. Yeah, because I think, Julie, remember, so like, all the way on the end is Cappy Lane. And then next is a room that is split with a partition wall. So I think that's gonna be STEM science right there. That would make the most sense. And then Kevin's room, STEM room, I don't know what that'll be. But that makes so much sense. That'd be smart to have like a garden within reach of that room. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the middle school has one. Middle school has an enclosed one right near the. It's like a greenhouse almost kind of thing. But you can, what I'm saying is like they have a mesh cover. That's different. It wouldn't be hard. You would just make it like a, and I guarantee there's people in the lane. Pretty deep. Brought in, yeah, all the tomatoes, yeah. 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 Yeah, there's a lot of educational opportunity there. And community, you know. So. Wow. At the school? Oh, really? I can get in his ear about it too. No pun intended. Planting the seed. Now, is the book necessary? Can it be like a electronic resource? That would be cheaper and it would be less materials. I think that would be better. Sue? Oh, yeah, I think an electronic resource would be for himself better than actually getting books that are even thrown out later. I'm not saying Sue, I'm just saying in the long run. Or buy one
And the PowerPoint?
I did the PDF
Oh, it's
export in
2025.
case, but the PowerPoint has animations, so.
Should be fine. We're just gonna bring it to the desktop, and I'll give you a thumb drive back in a sec. Okay.
Awesome, thank you so much.
So I do have a remote if you prefer to use that.
Okay, yeah, let's try it.
Just big buttons to
All right,
advance.
awesome.
To go back, there's a laser
Cool.
pointer at the top.
Awesome. I guess, yeah, it's gonna come up on these two screens.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Okay.
back and put them on right now,
Perfect.
and then start the recording.
Awesome.
I think Dan's gonna introduce you.
Awesome.
And
Do you
then-
mind if I tilt the laptop a little bit?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
If you want that podium moved, just let me know, because
Yeah, I
it is
think
all
I'm-
wired into
Okay.
the floor.
No,
But
I don't
if
think
you'd
the
prefer
podium
it to
will
be out on
fine.
the table, or we could do that too, I
Yeah,
think that should
maybe
reach.
because I think I'll move a little, but I'm not great at names and dates and
Sure.
things, so I just have a couple notes in the speaker section. That comes out, obviously not on the first slide, but. Sorry.
No, that's all good. Get you your mouse back. One second, I'll get you up on the screen, and then just. We'll just leave this on. right
Yeah,
next to you, and
sounds
then
good.
just put these on and start the recording whenever you guys start.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We have Jennifer Santoro, Assistant Teaching Professor of Geography and Environmental Science at Villanova. She's going to be speaking about the benefits of a shade tree canopy, not only in our suburban environment, but I presume in the fully natural environment. And very relevant issue as we face increased heat and violent weather in our areas. Her expertise is in forest ecology and geospatial analysis. She has a doctorate in applied forest ecology from the University of Vermont. So, geospatial analysis, can you start your talk explaining what that is?
I would love to. Basically means I'm a map nerd. I love a good map. I've spent a lot of time with my students at Villanova mapping trees on Villanova's campus, and doing a lot of forestry mapping for my dissertation, for my master's, and really all the time, and including a shade tree commission in my hometown in New Jersey with my dad, who is a shade tree member where I grew up, and I think still is. So I learned from the best to love trees. My dad is definitely one of my biggest inspirations for loving our forested canopy. And so tonight I'll talk about benefits of canopy mostly in urban and suburban areas. focusing on some of the benefits that trees can bring us in our very pavement-heavy environment. So I apologize, I'm a bit of a walker and mover. I'm used to this from teaching, so I'll try not to hover in one place, but if you ever can't hear me, if I'm not talking into the microphone loudly enough, just start waving your arms wildly at me. That would be great. Okay, so we're all pretty familiar with trees. We have quite a few in Radnor Township. I have some maps, surprise, surprise, about that later in the talk. And one of the ways we're familiar with local trees is the names we choose to give places in our community. This is especially prevalent on the East Coast, thanks to the history of our great nation. So we have places like Chestnut Street in Philadelphia. We have our very own Willow Grove just up the highway. I personally grew up on a street called Spruce Street, so maybe that's why I love trees so much. It was right next to Maple Street, and certainly we have whole major towns and cities named after trees, like Aspen, Colorado. One of my favorite things about Pennsylvania is it's the only US state that's actually named after trees. So Sylvan in Latin means woods, and Pennsylvania, translated from Latin, literally means Penn's Woods. So I'm really happy to live in a state that names itself after my favorite thing, trees, followed shortly by maps. So I start this talk with images like this, which we're all familiar with from, excuse me, driving down streets, maybe skiing in Aspen this winter, or heading up to Willow Grove, because they helped us to create a sense of place in our community. So whether that be here in Radnor, whether it be where I grew up, or whether it be out in Aspen, Colorado, trees are really important to create a sense of community, and we see that in the way trees are reflected in how we name our places. I took this figure from the Nature Conservancy. I've got tiny little credits on my slides. I like to give credit where credit is due. I did not make this. That really kind of illustrates the local benefits that urban trees provide to our communities. So this is a great graphic because it highlights a wide variety of things, from air pollution to physical and mental health, to social cohesion, reduction of stress, in addition to ecological aspects like biological diversity and providing habitat for a variety of species. They do this in the natural forest as well, but especially in the urban forest, these benefits become increasingly important. And I'm going to touch on, I think I have a laser pointer, maybe? Yeah, several of these throughout my talk. So I'm going to start with broad brushstrokes. I'm going to cite a lot of scientific literature. I'm going to try to make this really palatable because I sometimes fall asleep reading scientific papers too. The writing is a little bit dry, but I wanted to bring in the actual research about urban trees to illustrate just how beneficial they are for us. So I'm going to focus on 4 flavors of benefits. So it's not going to animate for me today, that's okay. The first category, which I'm going to start with, is focusing on environmental health. So benefits that trees provide us to air, water quality, biodiversity, and animal habitat. These help to create landscape connectivity, so different patches or mazes of canopy and trees that even go in through Philadelphia, like through Pennypack Park and the Wissahickon, that really help species travel around the East Coast. Next, I'll go to human health, so both mental and physical health. There's some great research out there on how beneficial trees are to us. I'll then go to economic reasons. I admit I'm not an economist, so I can't speak too in depth to money, income, monetary value, but a lot of smarter people than me have done research on this and have helped to quantify the economic impacts and benefits of trees. And lastly, I want to bring in some local Philadelphia research that talks about how trees are really important to create a sense of community identity. Throughout this talk, I want to emphasize that larger, more mature trees, so we on Shade Tree call heritage trees, bring the biggest benefits to the urban canopy. So in terms of trees, the bigger the better is true. The larger that diameter of that tree, the bigger the crown spread, typically the more benefits that tree provides to its community. So did that jiggle? All right, I'm going to start with that first one. I've been playing with PowerPoint animations. So the environmental benefits, I'll touch on 4 main things and then go into a case study on one of them. I could really spend the entire night talking about environmental benefits. This is near and dear to my heart, and it is what my research focuses on. But I'm going to try to give some time to economic benefits and health benefits and community well-being benefits as well. So the first one I want to bring up is that urban trees especially help to improve water quality and give us some really nice stormwater management options. If you've ever seen a heavy rainstorm and had water flow over your property or somewhere you're driving around, I'm personally at the intersection of Lancaster Ave and Conestoga Road a lot by that car wash, and I've seen rainstorms flood out that area pretty badly. There's a lot of pavement, there's a lot of sidewalk and cement, and there's not a lot of vegetation. Trees can really help us by increasing water filtration in that area and absorbing some of that stormwater. So there's lots of research out there that touches on how trees can filter that water, filter out pollutants, so they're not flowing over our landscape. That giant installment right by the Radnor Trail, where we're planting a lot of trees, is one example of how the township is helping to manage stormwater runoff by planting all those great little saplings to help absorb all that water. Trees can also help to improve air quality. So they can filter lots of different pollutants. Scroll down in my notes here. Oops. Let's go back. Maybe. Think about it. There we go. They can filter lots of harmful particulate matter out of the air. Now, this is not my particular field of research, which is why I provided myself some notes and some studies in the comments. So David Nowak is a forest ecologist who studies a lot to do with air quality and cooling effects on trees all across the US. He has a lot of research out there that looks at compounds like ozone, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, things that trees can help remove from the atmosphere so we are not breathing them in. I consider that a huge benefit. One of David's papers, especially his 2018 study, found that US urban trees in major cities across our country removed an estimated 822,000 metric tons of air pollution. That is a lot. To bring some dollar signs into this, that's estimated at a value of $5.4 billion in clean air restoration. So big environmental win, but big health and economic win for us as well. Another thing that I've done some research on is carbon sequestration in trees. Now, lots of photosynthetic plants can sequester carbon. Trees are big and they can store quite a bit. And those larger trees that I talked about on the previous slide help to sequester a lot more carbon. This is great for climate regulation. And recent work by the Forest Service and the US Department of Agriculture has found that annually 1 acre of forest, so that might be, we might have several of those over in the Willows, in different parks around town, absorbs 6 tons of carbon dioxide annually and puts out 4 tons of oxygen. So great benefits for our health in addition to cleaning the air and reducing climate change impacts. And lastly, there we go. Trees create lots of wildlife habitat, and they promote biodiversity in urban areas that often aren't super kind to a lot of animals trying to travel through. So something I study, which connects to my geospatial analysis, is habitat connectivity, especially through the Northeast Corridor up to New England, where we have a lot of urban areas, a lot of suburbs, and a lot of human expansion, and that can make it really difficult for creatures like bears to travel without disrupting human activities or potentially getting killed because they enter the wrong backyard or the wrong farm. So habitat connectivity, these green patches where different animals, depending on their home range, can travel, are really, really important, and trees in suburbs, like here in Radnor Township, are super important for allowing those animals to travel without encountering or being harmful to humans. Butterflies are another really great one. If any of you have gardens and you plant native pollination plants, our pollinators, like butterflies and moths and bees, are very appreciative of your efforts. They really help to create habitat for those pollinators, which helps with hydrologic regimes, nutrient cycling, and really benefits that are ecologically irreplaceable and difficult for us to engineer on our own. So I'm a big fan of the wildlife habitat that urban and suburban trees create for us. I cite one of my favorite scientists in this one, David Lindenmayer out of Australia. He writes a lot of great forestry papers, and he studies a lot of the benefits of trees down in Australia and what benefits they provide in terms of wildlife connectivity. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this air quality piece. So I'm going to bring in a case study about air quality. Pull that up with a couple of figures. So I'm pulling from two different papers here, one by McDonald in 2016 and one by Turner, Scoff, and Cavender in 2019. The latter I do have an open access link for at the end of the slides if you're interested in reading more. And I want to mention the urban heat island effect. Some of you may be familiar with this living or traveling into Philadelphia, where we have a lot of concern and in fact environmental justice issues as well about increased heat in the city with all of that black pavement and how this is inequitably distributed to people of lower income, that they live in neighborhoods with fewer trees and they experience hotter temperatures because of it. This is something the Philadelphia Tree Plan, which was released in 2023, is attempting to address. I'll come back to the tree plan towards the end of this talk. But the urban heat island effect is something that my colleagues at Villanova study pretty heavily and do a lot of work with gardens and tree canopy in Philadelphia to help the tree plan address these things. So broadly speaking, the urban heat island effect is the idea that any paved surface or building, especially dark colored building or paved surface, increases temperature, and tree canopy or other vegetation canopy, with trees being the best at it, help to cool those places down. So that's why it could be 5 to 10 degrees hotter in the city than it is here in Radnor Township. We have the benefits of a great tree canopy that keep us a little bit cooler in the summers. I know I'm not big on the heat. I'm definitely a winter girl. I like the cold. It's 60 degrees. I'm already wearing sandals, so you can tell that I heat up pretty quickly. And 90 degrees just kills me. So the urban heat island effect really helps to, it's not great. It increases those 90-degree days in Center City, Philly, and other areas with less tree canopy. If we plant more trees and increase bodies of water, too, we can help cool the air through evapotranspiration, reduce the temperature, and provide additional shade for people who are living there. A bunch of studies have been conducted in cities across the US and really across the globe, and that trees, there's a general trend, and this kind of bar graph over here from Turner, Scoff, and Cavender shows it a little bit, that the count of cities that they studied on the y-axis, most cities have experienced a positive or a cooling effect of trees cooling the environment, and the average is about 4 degrees Celsius. So the presence of a canopy has reduced temperatures in lots of major US cities by about 4 degrees Celsius. That helps. Anything helps. Okay, next section I'll move on to is human health benefits. And for all of these subsections, these are non-exhaustive lists. There are many other things I could cite here, but I wanted to pick out some of the more salient impacts. So lots of human health benefits. Reduced air pollution certainly falls into this category as well. The air we're breathing in, I'd rather that be clean. So I'll focus first on the bullet point with the brain, time spent in nature. And these studies are really fascinating to me. A lot of ecologists and psychologists work together to collaborate on these. And many have found that time spent in nature, like a walk through a park, maybe even down a tree-lined city street instead of a pavement-filled city street, is correlated with decreased blood pressure and reduced symptoms of depression and anxiety. So there is a really great study that I do recommend everyone Google and read for the second bullet point. Roger Ulrich in the 1980s I think this actually might have been in Pennsylvania too, had a hunch. He tested a hypothesis that hospital patients who could see green trees outside of their hospital windows recovered faster. He was able to study this, and he did find that hospital stays were reduced, and those patients needed to take fewer pain meds when they could see greenery outside their window, rather than those patients who were looking at a brick wall or another part of the building. So just seeing greenery helped patients recover, improve their mental health benefits, and they had to take fewer pain meds. I think that's a pretty big finding. Additionally, the presence of trees, for my third bullet point down here, has correlated with higher rates of physical activity, heart health, and longevity. I am a runner. I'm going to run a half marathon here in a couple weeks, and I much prefer running out here in the suburbs, running on the Radnor Trail, going out to the Chester Valley Trail covered in trees, as opposed to running along the Delaware River in Philadelphia. I get so much more enjoyment out of my runs under that shaded canopy, taking in the sights, the sounds, the smells of nature, rather than running through kind of bare streets, very cement-heavy streets of Philadelphia. So that's just a personal preference of mine. I've noticed that about myself. Turns out people have studied this, and the general trend is that people who are physically active outside tend to prefer greener areas in which to do their physical activity. Walk, run, bike, anything. So the presence of nature has encouraged people to lead more active lifestyles, and that in turn has helped to improve heart health and increased age and longevity in people. One study up here that I just noted, the statistics studied neighborhoods in Europe and found that people living in neighborhoods with more tree canopy reported 3 times higher physical activity and 40% lower obesity rates than those who lived in relatively tree-sparse neighborhoods. So some real quantifiable impacts across the Atlantic Ocean. Lastly, the bullet point with the sun. Trees definitely provide a lot of air quality benefits, and those spreading canopies can help protect us from harmful UV rays and shade. But in the city, this is especially important when we take that urban heat island effect into consideration. So not only is it reducing our air temperature, it's also helping to prevent us from getting sunburn and any associated health risks, diseases, or cancers with that. Okay, oh, that went ahead already. I'm not hitting this the right way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. Okay. So the next case study I'm going to focus on is this reduction in depression, anxiety, and other negative mental health symptoms. The Lee paper cited in here is actually a book on forest bathing. I have not finished it yet, but I find it really interesting. So I'd recommend checking that out as well. So here is a figure from a mental health paper. That I'll explain this graph in a moment, but I want to write out this, this mental health benefits from the paper itself, direct quote. Dose response modeling showed a threshold response with 50% less depression and 43% less stress in neighborhoods with more than 20% forest cover. So just 20% forest cover showed these huge benefits in stress and depression symptom reduction. And then 56% less anxiety in neighborhoods that crested 30% tree cover. To spoil a later part of the talk a little bit, Radnor Township is around 50% tree cover, a little bit more. So we are well over these thresholds, and it's doing us a lot of good. However, what this graph also notes here, neighborhood forest cover, you see the low areas, 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. This 20 was a really hard cutoff for them. These bars, these gray bars, are pretty short once we get over 20% tree cover. This is the percentage of urban dwellers. So most of our urban dwellers, it's that 30 plus 40, 70. We're having most of our people who live in cities live with less than 20% tree cover. So they are not getting these great mental health benefits. Most of our population, maybe it's only 15%, experiences the greater than 20 and greater than 30% tree cover that is shown to correlate with these reduction in negative mental health symptoms. So this kind of gives us, to me, it gives us a mission. If we can increase urban tree cover in our major cities, maybe this is a lower cost and more environmental way to help our mental health. So that's why I'm a fan of planting more trees in Radnor and beyond and Philly's tree plan. But I think this is a pretty compelling response from the mental health community. I'll move on to economic benefits. Knowing that this is not my forte, a lot of people, a lot of economists have worked with ecological data and forestry data to think about the net monetary benefits, maybe even detriments in some cases that trees provide us. So I'll start with this first bullet again. The presence of trees can increase property values and home values by 3 to 15%. I don't own a home. I suspect many people here do or have, or know somebody who has. My parents have a lot of trees in their backyard, and they certainly have seen increases in the value of their home because they have so much canopy. So this might be kind of a duh point, but I think it's really worth pointing out because it's something that individual homeowners can actively do on their own property is plant more trees, even plant 1 to 2 trees to see these land value, home value, property value increases. A study that was done over the past 20 years, took a 20-year average from 1997 to 2017, saw that both residential and commercial properties benefited from increased trees, with an average of about 7% and as high as 15% for those residential properties. So larger, mature front yard trees on a property were the ones that hit that 15% increase in value. And that was for, with an average increase of 1% in value for each large tree. So the more large trees, the better. Next, I want to talk about energy savings. So that's the bullet point kind of down below with the light bulb, is that trees close to a home can help you reduce your energy expenditures. And some studies, the Forest Service has been part of this, and David Nowak from before, has found a 20 to 50% reduction depending on your geographic location within the US. Overall, the authors estimate that urban forests in the US collectively provide in 2019 dollars about an $18.3 billion dollar value from a variety of services like pollution removal, reducing those building energy costs, carbon sequestration, and more. So $18.3 billion that trees are saving our economy. That pollution removal alone, I think I mentioned this earlier, that $5.4 billion statistic, and energy costs was also around $5 billion in savings, and that's in the whole country. So I think those are pretty big numbers, that trees can reduce our energy costs, but also our energy consumption by up to 25%, depending on the species of trees, the proximity of trees, and the size of the residence or dwelling. So we save homeowners real money by having trees surrounding our houses, our commercial buildings, our college campuses, and beyond. For those of us who live in apartments, like myself, office buildings, apartment buildings that are surrounded by trees tend to have higher occupancy rates. This is definitely true for me. I tend to choose places that have lots of trees around them. I even get sometimes a little weirded out when the buildings are always taller than the trees. I like to see a nice mature canopy. It makes me feel more relaxed and at home. And these findings are pretty common for other folks as well. Lastly, on this slide, this will kind of dovetail into a slight hazard for trees later, but trees can help buffer against negative effects caused by severe weather. They can also fall when we get severe weather. I have some direct experience with that as well. But trees can act as windbreaks and can shelter homes from the impacts of severe wind. This is particularly true in areas that experience tornadoes. So while I was a PhD student at UVM, I did some research on a tornado that went through southern Massachusetts in 2011. There were certainly a lot of trees that were taken down, but depending on the angle or the orientation of the house and the trees, some of those trees did not fall and acted as windbreaks, which protected the homes from getting severe tornado damage. So those trees did, in fact, help some homes avoid some of that damage. Okay, there we go. I think my animations are a little funny. So I'm going to talk about an energy saving example on the next slide. And this case study is coming to us from Phoenix, Arizona. Has anyone been to Phoenix? I've been to Phoenix, but in the winter, which I think is probably a nicer time to visit. I have not been in the summer. I hear it gets hot. So Phoenix is a particularly interesting case study to look at because of those high summer temperatures, the kind of arid desert climate. And I certainly didn't notice a whole lot of tree cover when I was in Phoenix. I'm from the East Coast. I've spent most of my life on the East Coast, so maybe it makes sense that my expectations of canopy cover in the Southwest seemed a little sparse to me. So two folks from the University of Arizona, Dr. Kim and a graduate student, I forget his first name, Paul Cosio, studied urban trees in the city of Phoenix. Now, Phoenix has about 7% tree cover. It's pretty darn low in the grand scheme of things. Pittsburgh and Philly are well over 20%, so we're doing a lot better here on the East Coast in terms of that. And they have over 500,000 trees that they analyzed in a software called iTree for this study. Even with that, what I would consider a low percentage of tree cover, they did the single city quantification of the monetary value of trees in reducing air pollutants across the city. Even with just that 7%, Phoenix experiences $1.6 million savings in air pollution reduction from their urban canopy. Additional savings in energy costs, which equates to over 3,000 tons of carbon removed, associated value of almost $300,000 for the city, and 272 tons of air pollution. There's that $1.16 million figure. The energy costs estimated at over $100,000 per resident for Phoenix. So this is a pretty big study with some really great findings. I'm going to not hit the laser pointer. And these are some of the different pollutants that they found trees could remove pretty well. So ozone, O3, and coarser and fine particulate matter were some of the pollutants that trees did a really good job removing. PM10 can really irritate your lungs. That could be things like wildfire smoke. And trees were really great at removing those. So the last kind of major category that I'll highlight here is general community benefits. And I like to end on this because I've got a Philadelphia example coming up after this slide. So the community benefits of urban trees, according to the National Institutes of Health, have benefit mainly because they are green. So the National Institutes of Health did this really fascinating study about the color green. It happens to be my favorite color, I wonder why, on human physiology, and found that being surrounded by green things lowers heart rate and can have a calming effect on the human mind. So I paint my walls green, I have lots of houseplants, I wear green. I like to think this helps in my own stress and anxiety reduction. Additionally, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Forest Service has found that tree-lined streets increase the perception of walkability and beauty in a community, and that ties into our previous point about promoting mental health for residents in urban areas and suburbs, and supporting just the desire to get out of your house, walk around, and increases community ties. Kind of with that point, tree-lined streets also promote safety and pedestrian walkability in a community. Certainly, trees can block views of roads, and in that case, they could pose a threat or a safety risk. But a study in 2018 by Marshall and colleagues found that there was a correlation between larger tree canopies, again, our bigger trees are coming back into the picture, with fewer vehicle crashes in that area. Vehicle speed did play a role here, so folks who are speeding way above the speed limit on Route 30, that doesn't play into consideration. So those lower speed limits, in addition to tree-lined streets, really help to decrease crash risk and human injury and fatality for both the driver and any pedestrians or cyclists that were impacted. Another point that I really like to talk about down here is that community trees, especially in urban and suburban areas, can provide food for community members. Now, I have a colleague up at Ursinus College. Excuse me. Now I completely just blanked on his name, Patrick Hurley. Patrick Hurley is a professor at Ursinus, and he studies urban food forests. He's given some great talks before about growing food in urban and suburban communities, including on Ursinus's campus, and they have a pretty awesome food forest at their college. So growing fruit trees, nut trees, and other trees that create fruit that can be eaten is a form of urban gardening. And these urban gardens prevent a really, I think, novel way to help increase food security in communities that are suffering from food insecurity and provide free, healthy, nutritious, and locally grown food to those who need it. So I really like this example. I like to talk to Dr. Hurley a lot about his research. He gets involved in the community quite a bit and does a lot of work in Philadelphia as well. And lastly, this is my Philly study, is Michelle Kondo and lots of other colleagues have looked at the correlation between tree cover and violence in major cities across the US. Michelle Kondo specifically has worked in Philadelphia and has some really impressive findings on reductions in gun violence when there's increased tree canopy. So let's take a look at that one. That was the wrong way to go. There we go. So here's a screenshot from the Philly Tree Plan. This came out in 2023, and a quote from Kondo's 2017 paper that helped to inform the Philly Tree Plan. And she says, urban greening and tree cover may hold promise as proactive strategies to decrease urban violence. They looked at a lot of different urban youth and young adults, and they found compelling evidence of an inverse association between tree cover and gun assault. So when tree cover increased, gun assault decreases. And they are also map nerds and GIS or geospatial analysts just like me. And we're able to put together some really interesting maps looking at, in black, points of particularly high gun violence in the city in the 20-teens. In addition to Philly's urban tree cover at that time, you can see areas like Pennypack Park and the Wissahickon popping out. And those areas with less tree cover tended to have higher rates of gun violence. This was incorporated into the Philly Tree Plan, which is our 10-year strategy to grow, protect, and care for Philadelphia's urban trees. And they're estimating in the plan, this is one of their bullet points, that a 12% decrease in robbery, theft, and burglary, so even outside of gun violence, could net an estimated $50 million per year in social benefits for the city, in addition to hopefully saving lives. So I love that study. Michelle Kondo does some really great work on tree cover in Philadelphia, a lot of great maps and GIS analysis that comes out of her lab. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk about some risks of trees. I would like to think it's all rainbows and butterflies and happiness, but there are some risks to having trees as part of your life. If you've had trees on your property before or talked to an arborist about any trees, you may well know the cost of maintaining your trees, maybe cabling them, trimming them, dealing with limbs that have broken in a recent storm, or taking them down entirely. Perhaps they fall on a roof or a porch. There are costs associated with that. So neighborhood trees can be risky when they fall on homes, on cars, on roadways. They can cause property damage. They can cause safety issues. So they're not hidden from that. So those are the first 2 points. One of my colleagues at Villanova in the Department of Geography and the Environment does a lot of work with air pollution and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, specifically from particulate matter, PM 2.5 and PM 10. But there is some research out there that biogenic volatile organic compounds can be produced from large plants like trees and released into the air. These could have negative impacts on air quality, but overall the benefits that trees remove some of that fine particulate matter, ozone, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, etc., tends to outweigh what they release back into the environment. There's still a lot of research to be done on this. This is kind of a newer field where a lot of scientists are looking into what trees release that could be harmful. So far, the evidence is that the benefits outweigh the costs, but it's good to know that this is happening as well. And lastly, a social issue that could be a risk of neighborhood trees is the inequitable or unequal access to trees, especially in lower income communities. We see this in Philadelphia a lot. The greener spaces in Philadelphia tend to be the wealthier neighborhoods, higher home values. They correlate with things like higher high school graduation rates, lower instances of violent crime, and a lot of social and demographic factors. So I think that's a call to action for the city of Philadelphia, for cities really countrywide, even for smaller townships like Radnor, to really think about their tree canopy in increasing physical and mental health benefits, cleaning and cooling the air, rising property values, and creating a lot of mental health benefits as well. So as urban planners, as environmental scientists, as community organizers, and just as concerned citizens of Radnor Township, let's work together to create more equal access to trees for everybody. Oop, we're going to go through these again. Boom. So one example from this is a 2021 New York Times article that looked at cities across the U.S. The article is called "Since When Have Trees Existed Only for Wealthy or Rich Americans?" And they show different portions of neighborhoods in major cities. Philadelphia is not in this screenshot, but it was part of the article too. Where they look at neighborhoods with certain median incomes. This is all pulled from U.S. Census data, which is publicly available in Maps Online. And for the lower income neighborhoods, I'll point at the screen this time, which tend to be in the left column of each of these, lower median income has lower tree cover. You don't see a lot of green in those snapshots. But higher median incomes tend to have a higher tree cover. And this is based on a lot of research that shows countrywide this trend holds. Neighborhoods with higher median income in major cities across the U.S. tend to have more dense and more fruitful and healthy tree canopies. even going on Google Maps, you can see this trend in Philadelphia. And this is supported by a lot of different studies. So I like to kind of end the big science part of this by bringing up this figure from the Yale Climate Connections. And this is a meta-analysis of many studies on urban tree health outcomes. So the authors of this study read a ton of papers and analyzed all the data those papers came up with. And they found that for different things, like ultraviolet radiation, how many studies confirmed benefits of trees, confirmed detriments or negative impacts of trees, or had mixed impacts. I think those mixed impacts are the ones where we really need to dig deeper, figure out what could be going on here. But you see a lot of green in these pie charts. So for things like psychological stress, immune system impacts, social cohesion, even cognition and attention restoration, studies that tackle these topics overwhelmingly find positive impacts of urban trees and urban canopy, with some mixed studies in there. Those volatile organic compounds and, of course, tree pollen, we're all going to become very familiar with that in just a few short weeks, have some negative impacts. I'm certainly not looking forward to allergy season, but that's kind of the biggest pink pie chart on here. There are some negative impacts based on tree pollen allergies. I have a whole thing on arboreal sexism that I like to go into, which includes our increased planting of male trees in urban and suburban areas, which has increased the pollen load on our nostrils. So it's in dioecious trees, it's a really interesting phenomenon. We have planted more males than females because the fruit is messy to clean up on the sidewalk. Think about ginkgos, think about ash seeds when we had ash. Certain types of maples are dioecious, like the box elder. The increased planting of male trees has increased the pollen load on our faces. That's a rant, too, for me. But a lot of these studies are showing positive evidence. And I think those gray areas, again, I don't know too much about birth outcomes, but that's some area where we could do more research on the benefits of urban trees. So let's kind of translate this over to a more local lens. So I had a lot of fun at the end of this thinking about Delaware County and Radnor Township. And I busted open some maps, some freely available data from the Pennsylvania Spatial Data Access, PASDA, which is run through Penn State, credit where credit is due. And I made a couple maps for us. So this data set is admittedly a little bit old. It's from 2013, but it's the latest we have at a 1 meter resolution. So each of the little pixels or squares in this map is 1 by 1 meter over the entirety of Delaware County. This analysis was done by the UVM, University of Vermont Spatial Analysis Lab. I wish I had a hand in this work. I did not, but some great colleagues and grad students helped to do this, and they did a 1 meter resolution analysis for the entire state of Pennsylvania, which to me is crazy. Think about the terabytes of data that must have taken up. They went into New Jersey and New York and Delaware as well. I extracted just Delaware County here to take a look at some of the statistics. If you're interested in methods, I would love to gush about this. They use something called object-based image analysis, which looks at imagery and uses machine learning and a little bit of AI algorithms to detect features, to pick up kind of blobs of like, hey, this is a rooftop and this is a swimming pool. So you can train a computer to identify things in a map or from aerial imagery. So they used high-resolution imagery, something called LiDAR data, light detection and ranging, which gets at heights. It's like a 3D model. And they were able to iterate this over the entire state and make a estimation. So you could find some errors in this, but it's a really good estimation that has been ground truth in certain locations of where are there tree canopy, buildings, wetlands, water, impervious surface, all of these factors up here in the legend. And what I really like about this analysis compared to other different land cover maps that you might find out there is they separated out tree canopy classes. So we have in dark green up here just tree canopy, and there's a lot of that in Delaware County, which is awesome. But we also have in the 3 kind of lime green classes, tree canopy over structures, tree canopy over roads, and tree canopy over other impervious surfaces. So these lighter greens, and you don't see a ton, especially kind of on the projector here, really help to isolate trees that are near spaces where we are transporting ourselves, either via car, train, walking, bicycle, etc. And I think that's important to separate out. We also have, in this kind of minty green, a lot of low vegetation. That could be things like big open lawns, grasses, gardens that don't have a high tree canopy over them. So still green spaces, but not tree canopy. So what I did with this layer is I looked at the acreage of Delaware County, and I took each of these classes and tried to figure out, well, how much is there in each class? And I came up with this chart. So within Delaware County, about 45% of the county is covered by tree canopy. I think that's pretty impressive. We have the Philadelphia International Airport, big area of no tree canopy, and the John Hines wetlands down there. Not a lot of trees, but we still managed to have a fairly impressive tree canopy across the county at 45%. The other classes are clocking in at pretty low numbers, 2% over impervious surfaces, 1% over roads, and about 0.5% over structures like buildings. So added together, what is that, getting close to 50% tree canopy in Delco? I'm rather impressed. Ridley Creek State Park, other large open areas really help to bolster this. They're like solid tree canopy. But we can zoom in even further. How does Radnor Township compare to Delaware County as a whole? We don't have the airport, so maybe we'll get better numbers. Here's Radnor. So we do have a lot of this low vegetation space down here. I don't even know if I've been down here. Is that a golf course? But we also have tons of tree canopy, and you can see it on either side of 476 here, spread all throughout Wayne, St. David's, Villanova. We're pretty full of tree canopy. So same classes, redid the acreage calculations, and I got this bar graph. So we're at almost 60% tree canopy when you add together the solid tree canopy in addition to trees over impervious surfaces, roads, and other structures. We are doing great here in Radnor Township. That doesn't mean we should stop where we are. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. But we are looking really solid in terms of tree canopy. Adding more, like planting in our parks. I know Shade Tree talks a lot about planting in Emlyn-Tunnell Park and some other of our green spaces here in Radnor Township is only going to increase some of the many benefits I talked about earlier. So I see we're getting pretty close to 8, so I'll wrap up with just some historical imagery. So these data were crunched in 2013 by the UVM Spatial Analysis Lab. Took a lot of work and effort to do this. I don't know if we're going to get an update soon, so do keep in mind these data are a little old. I would love to get a new data set, but that high-resolution imagery of 1 by 1 meter throughout the whole state of Pennsylvania takes a lot of effort to generate. But we can look to Google Maps aerial imagery to see how things have changed over time. So I've grabbed 2 screenshots here. It's understandably a little fuzzier from 1985. That image actually predates me. And then one from 2024. And it's hard to see at the Radnor Township level, but there are a couple things we can start to pick out. You know, maybe here's like that golf course by the Willows. I think in the next slide, we'll see more expansion of Villanova from here on West Campus to over here. And we'll see that tree canopy kind of shift over time. Google Maps imagery is a little bit harder to quantify because of the changes in resolution over time. Our technology has just gotten better in 2024, that we can see more things, we can discern more features in more recent imagery. It's a little bit difficult to go in and classify this when the resolution is so low, but we can at least see patterns and trends. So the next slide is going to be an animation. It's a time lapse from Google Earth. It's going to start right around 1985, and I think every half second to second, it's going to switch to a new year. Red text is going to come up, and that's calling out specific features. So I call out the construction of 476. I call out Villanova's West Campus being expanded. You can see that appear in the time lapse. Looks like I call out that Penn Med building over by Radnor High School. Radnor High School is marked on here for a point in common. And that kind of, I think of that as like that business complex that is just west of Radnor High School, kind of across from Giant and Home Goods and TJ Maxx. Okay, so let's start this guy. So 476 is the first thing that comes into view. Nova's West Campus is going to come in later. And then we start to see Penn Med and the construction over here taking place in addition to this business park around the Radnor Hotel. it gets whiter. That is rooftops, that is pavement, that is other buildings coming in, and we start to see a little bit less green. Now, keep in mind, the resolution of the imagery gets better as we go from the 1980s to today. So it looks really fuzzy here. It gets crisper as we go. Let's see if it'll let me play it one more time. Okay, we're up to 88, 89 as we're going through. But the nice thing is we still see strongholds of green in a lot of areas, places that are not, that trees are maintained throughout this, 30 to 40 year period. Areas in here around 476, kind of south of 476. So even with the construction of a major interstate and additional infrastructure here, we are still seeing a lot of green canopy maintained over this about 40-year period in Radnor. And this is just a small zoom in for part of our town. It's a lot harder to detect those minute changes for all of Radnor, but I had fun zooming around and doing this time lapse for different parts of the township. Okay, so I think we should be proud of our tree canopy in Radnor. We've got almost 60% if we add all those canopy numbers together from the 2013 analysis, and I would suspect even today, over a decade later, we're still pretty darn close to those numbers. So I want to end with the Radnor 2035 comprehensive plan, because trees play a big role. And we had a discussion about this at the last shade tree meeting, that there's a whole section in here about reforestation strategies to track, maintain, and expand the tree canopy. This is an area where I think Radnor can improve, really anywhere can improve, and may allow us to get some great data that could help us update that UVM spatial data set and get a much better handle on our tree canopy. So the main things I take away from the Radnor 2035 plan, at least the executive summaries that I've read of it, is that it does behoove us, and I think we've done a good job in this township, recognizing the roles trees play in supporting our community, whether that's a robust ecosystem, human health, a sense of community, and even our sustainability goals for the community. We already have a high canopy coverage, but that's not stopping us from working to increase it. I see that as a huge positive. We're not content with 60%. We can get that higher, and we can reap more benefits from our urban trees. But also that education, community engagement, and activism are really important to helping us achieve these goals and to help push our tree canopy further. So I'll end on that note. I've got a link to the plan up there if you haven't read it. It's long. I've only read the executive summary, admittedly. But with that, I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. And I'll talk, Ian, I can talk to you about maybe sharing these slides or the PDF later, but I do have kind of 2 slides of references if anyone is interested in exploring more. This slide in particular is all open access resources that are not behind an academic paywall. I try to use those as often as I can. So thank you, everyone. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Santoro. Yes, please send to me or Eugenia whatever you would like to share with the EAC and people attending. Thank you. I have just one question, is how does a tree remove particulate matter?
Let me see if I have notes on that.
It was one of your earlier
It was,
slides.
yeah. Oh, maybe human health or environmental. How does it do it? Okay. So I don't, since this is not my area of study, can I phone a friend and call a colleague who does air pollution? I'm not exactly sure of the mechanism of how they do it, but at least evapotranspiration is part of it. That helps with the cooling benefits as well. But in the same way trees can remove ozone, so O3, the chemical formula is O3, some of those fine particulate matters like PM 2.5, which is linked to lung cancer and other lung diseases, trees can, the PM can settle on their leaves so it's not floating around in the air for us to breathe in. When the leaves fall, they then disintegrate and enter the soil. I believe that is one mechanism, but I don't think that tells the whole story.
Well, you got a lot of surface area on the leaves of a tree. Please, anybody?
I don't know if I need this, but,
Yeah, because it's
okay.
being recorded.
Oh, I see, okay. Question for you, specifically for Villanova. We had, my backyard is now a Villanova campus. And there's a lot of activity on there, and the big concern is that they maintain that the campus is gorgeous. And I don't want to lose any trees, and they're committed to that as well. Couple of concerns. One is that they need to take some trees down to protect the students that are coming in. There's a lot of trees that are already down that house a lot of animals and insects and all of that. So is there, I don't know if you can even speak to this connection that the folks that are doing that work on the Cabrini campus, are they leaving some of the trees that have fallen so that we can take advantage of that? And, or, put up, I know they have I think it's a 5-to-1. If they cut down a tree, they have to plant several. So I don't know if you can address any of that.
So I think I don't know definitively what will go on. I know that there is interest in keeping as much of the canopy as possible. I actually have a meeting that partially touches on this next week where we'll discuss Cabrini's campus. But some of the facilities folks have been over there. I have not been invited yet. My time will come maybe in the summer. So facilities is aware of the Great Canopy. I think they are part of removing some of the trees that were deemed hazardous. But I have not heard any updates on the trees that were already down and providing valuable wildlife habitat, great additions to the soil with decay. So I don't know what the plans are for those. If they're in like a forested part and not necessarily like a sidewalk access part, I would hope they would leave them. And I would even go out on a limb to say that the horticulture manager at Villanova would agree with that statement. He would like to leave those. What I don't know is if that is in the plan or not, how much say I have or biology has or he has in actually leaving some of those trees on site. So I think we're still out on that. I don't have a definitive answer for you, but I'm certainly going to rally for keeping a lot of those trees dead and alive on Cabrini's campus because I've seen the aerial photos from recent imagery of that campus, and they have a lot of really great trees. As you said, they're gorgeous over there, and they did a really good job maintaining them when Cabrini was a university. So I hope we keep them. And as soon as they let me over there, if they give me a say, which I hope they do, because it is my area of expertise, I'm hoping we keep a lot of those, even amidst the construction on Cabrini.
You mentioned early in your presentation that trees can help reduce rates of cardiovascular disease and stroke. Do we know how they do that? Is it the fact that wooded areas promote recreation and exercise? Is it the whole sort of stress reduction thing or something else?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is stress reduction and blood pressure reduction. So that greenness walking through nature, even just looking outside your window, hospital window or bedroom window or kitchen window as you're eating breakfast, is associated and correlated statistically significantly from Roger Ulrich's 1986 paper. And I'm just looking up some additional citations here. We don't have any other on this slide. From several other studies that those views of nature and seeing that green space reduce, the color green reduced blood pressure. So I think that then has cascading effects. I know I'm not that kind of a doctor, but that has cascading effects on a risk and a reduction risk for heart attacks, cardiovascular diseases, and such. And I think that kind of ties into, I don't think we can fully separate viewing green and the increased encouragement for people to lead more active lifestyles when they have a greener space within which to recreate. So I think those are tied hand in hand. If you're going to be more likely to lead an active lifestyle if you're in a green space, you're already at a reduced risk of a lot of negative health outcomes, including cardiovascular outcomes. So that better heart health that comes with being in a green space and recreating in a green space, I don't think we can totally extract that from just viewing green things. I think those are inextricably tied together. Good question.
Yeah, that intersection of Lancaster Avenue and 476, that plateau area that's covered with inside the intersection, over the years they've cut down an awful lot of trees. What was the logic to that, or what was the reason? I mean, they
I'm gonna pull up
literally
the map
cleared
here.
that area.
You can see it in your time lapse, actually.
Okay, let's go. Let's see if I can pause this. If I start it, can I also stop it? Oh,
Yeah,
that goes.
yeah.
We'll let it go. Oh. There we go. So, is it like this area down here?
Yeah, that,
Okay. It becomes not.
yeah,
So we're
suddenly
looking
it's
at 8, 9. I'm trying to think. I moved to Radnor in 2020. Okay. Oh,
There,
yeah. Okay.
there it goes.
Yep, there it goes in 2019.
Yep,
So I'm not sure why. Has anyone been here longer
No.
than me? Who?
well, we had
It was a mistake?
some township employee get in big trouble for that.
Oh. Ex-township employee.
Yes.
Let the record show.
ex-township- And so it was not blessed by the necessary boards and commissions.
I see. Okay.
So the reason it, I think, remains a mystery to me at least. As you could see, though, there is some growth, at least on the periphery, as your time lapse showed. It's an area that you can't easily visualize from the road. I mean, you're too busy watching traffic, so.
They have since planted it with meadow plants. Jonathan Alderson, who did Penn Radnor's new complex. So they have turned that whole mound into a meadow, like an official meadow, with a somewhat sophisticated set of meadow plants that is similar to the Penn Radnor meadow. Now that's kind of a separate issue, but why? Yeah, that's.
So is that like the middle area? Like if you're coming off 476 and maybe, I guess, from going on 476 north and getting off at the Villanova exit and then wanting to turn left, aren't there those white rocks there that sometimes get colored in cellophane for Easter? Does it look like Easter eggs?
It's the hill.
Yeah,
the
that hill.
whole hill.
Do you think visibility would have been an issue with people merging on and off?
No.
I feel like I get off that exit more than I get on the highway there. I'm usually going
It's not.
with the other one.
No.
Okay. I'm going to pay attention to this next time I'm driving that way. Yeah, so mistake. Ooh, that's a little gossip here. Well, maybe this is the call to action. We need to put trees in there. I like meadows too, but I gotta say I like trees better.
One consequence of the disasters in the West from wind and house damage and hurricanes and tornadoes is I got a letter from State Farm, form letter, saying we have visually inspected the property of your property and noticed that there are certain risks posed by trees growing close to your home. We recommend you remedy this risk. It is quite possible that if you put a claim in for damage to your house by a tree, it will not be honored. So I have removed a dead ash way in the back, as well as a hollow Norway maple that was right next to my house. It was a common sense move, but this is just the interaction of the climate change with the risk posed to us in many different ways.
And that's a great point too about Norway maples. So where I grew up in northern New Jersey, my kind of my hometown, at least in the old part of town where my parents still own a house, when that neighborhood was built, they gave everyone like half an acre, a house, and a couple of Norway maples planted in the front of the backyard. It was easy to get them. They grew fast. They didn't tip over that well in windstorms, so they were pretty resilient trees. But now we're thinking about trying to get rid of Norway maples because they're highly invasive and they outcompete other maple species. So that's an interesting point about thinking about, I don't dwell a lot on invasive tree species in urban areas, but it's certainly an issue. Things like Norway maple, Paulownia or princess tree, tree of heaven with all that spotted lanternfly stuff. That can be a real issue in urban canopies as well. There's a giant, beautiful princess tree is that the middle school, the corner of Radnor Middle School? Gorgeous purple flowers every spring. I love this tree, but I kind of have to hate it because it's an invasive species too. But it's got such a broad canopy. It provides really nice shade on that sidewalk. That will take years to replace. So we have these trade-offs in removing large trees that we know are invasive, and that thing's going to send seeds everywhere. We're going to get tons more princess trees. My dad taught me early on to identify sugar maple versus Norway maple really easily. So I could pull out all the little saplings and suckers that were Norway and keep the sugars because we had both types of maples in the yard. So we were actively trying to prevent more Norways from going and encourage the sugar maples to take root, especially in the backyard where we had more space to grow trees. So that brings up a great question about how do you manage? You have a great canopy tree, but it's an invasive species. What ethically is the right thing to do? What ecologically is the right thing to do? And are you maybe willingly decreasing your home value if you take it out because it will take years and years to grow another big canopy tree in its place? So they're not always straight answers. They're not always easy answers. So that's an interesting, a nuanced discussion point.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Santoro. It's very interesting, very relevant to what the EAC is up to. And we'll hopefully see you again and for an update on, hopefully we get a good report card again next time we see you.
I hope so, and maybe I can bring some Cabrini news once we figure that out.
That's right.
I don't know when that'll happen, but I hope in the next couple of years we'll get something up and running. I'm excited for Villanova, so. Thank you, everyone, for coming out on a Wednesday night. I appreciate it. Sanctioned info dumping of trees. Yeah. Okay. Appreciate you, Dan. Thanks for reminders.
Talk to you.